What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday, we did have that Sony State of Play that ran for more than an hour, showed off a bunch of games, and had some pretty exciting announcements in there, so much so that reactions were going crazy online saying, this could be the best State of Play we've had in several years, but we'll go over everything that was announced here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Switch 2 game key cards because more sales data is coming out that shows maybe the market is growing accustomed to these game key cards. And we'll also be talking about PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium, specifically Premium with the classic side, as we did have another PlayStation 2 game announced to go into the service, just not necessarily the one that most people were asking for. Maybe. We'll go over all of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with FromSoft, specifically though Kadokawa, as they did have to answer questions with investors and give some guidance as to what's going on with Elden Ring on the Switch 2 and Duskbloods on the Switch 2. Duskbloods, of course, people are really wondering what that is. Looking forward to it, a big FromSoft game, and then Elden Ring, I mean, it got delayed out of last year, and now many are just wondering, like, when is it coming out so we can kind of get the show on the road for Duskbloods? At least that's how we assume it's lining up behind the scenes. Well, we can see, this is over on VGC, and they're actually quoting Kadokawa, again, talking with their earnings results, saying, From Software currently has multiple titles in development pipeline, including Elden Ring Tarnished Edition and the Duskbloods, both slated for a 2026 release for Nintendo Switch 2. They double down with investors on it being a Switch 2 exclusive, saying, at this point, we have yet to announce a specific release date, that being for Duskbloods. It will be sold on a joint basis with Nintendo, with sales responsibilities divided by region. The title will only be available for the Nintendo Switch 2. And look, I know Elden Ring is more curiosity, anything like, let's see it just running on the Switch 2, and at this time, running well, at least. It was kind of sketchy with some of the off-screen footage that we saw at different events. But the Duskbloods is intriguing because they've talked about how they have been working on this polishing and Q&A for years now. Like QA just working to make sure it is up to a certain level for FromSoft with a multiplayer-focused game like the Souls genre. So I'm curious to see how that works out. And of course, it being aligned with Nintendo caught a lot of people off guard. So here's hoping maybe we get some, general direct here in the next month or two, and we can get some dates attached to these games. Also, it looks like we have another Fortnite crossover coming up. You can see this one seems to involve Kingdom Hearts, and it's coming in the next few months, according to several different accounts, and it was blowing up online because you see Sora there and Fortnite, and I made a little joke that, kids now are gonna know Sora as that person from Fortnite, and that is a legit thing that happens. It's kind of similar to back in the day when we had Fire Emblem come over through way of Smash Brothers. That's how we knew these different characters, Roy or Marth, or whoever, like, oh yeah, that's a person from Smash Brothers. Oh, they have a game too? That's interesting. It's gonna kind of be like that. But also, this is a good way, yes, to get a younger audience who maybe has not played Kingdom Hearts or even looked at it to go, oh, maybe I will check that out. The character looks cool and all the skins you unlock and extra little abilities. You know what? I will see what's going on here with Kingdom Hearts. And then they'll get to one and realize, man, that could use a little bit of work. So, hey, maybe they tie it into a remake that's been rumored, but something tells me probably not going to happen. Still, though, there you go, another interesting Fortnite crossover coming up in the next few months. Oh, and in direct contrast to the video game industry it's very secretive and at times will hold their announcements up until the day of or month of release, for the movie industry, they will announce stuff years in advance, and in fact, they've done that again here, you can see. Now, this is for Helldivers, as there will be a film adaptation in theaters, and they've already made the release date known for November 10th, 2027. Yeah, like more than a month, or more than a year and a half, sorry, away from its release in the theaters, with Jason Momoa, who will star in the adaptation. He's kind of becoming like the Tom Holland of the video game industry, where or the movie industry, where he's just kind of everywhere now. But look, Helldivers, that should adapt over well, because I'm of course already thinking of Starship Troopers, but with Helldivers, some of the, I hope it's not it doesn't take itself too seriously, because there is kind of that satire and commentary just outright in that game on like war and stuff. So that will be kind of interesting to see him go that route, but who knows, maybe they try to make it really serious, Michael Bay, everything exploding around you, big spectacle for the big screen. I'm kind of expecting a good popcorn flick, but apparently we'll see towards the end of 2027. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with that Sony State of Play that indeed went for more than an hour. It went like an hour 10. I mean, we got to the 60-minute mark and I went, ooh, okay, we have one more thing. No, they had 3 or 4 more things. So they were just locked in and rolling, and they had a bunch of stuff to announce. And I feel like the pacing was good overall for what they showed and which games got more time versus others. I think it was a pretty well put together event, and it makes sense why many people are saying this is the best State of Play we've had in several years now. But we're going to go over everything that was announced. We'll start at the top here, and that's with Kena Scars of Cosmora. And I was really happy to see this. Good way to start off the show, I would say. As we know, Ember's kind of aligned very, very much so with Sony, to where PlayStation is coming in and helping out and funding parts of it and stuff. So I mean, this makes sense, I think, to follow up Kena Bridge of Spirits, and it just looks like they're playing off of that, to where the game looks much larger than that first one. I think it just looks better visually with the lighting, and they showed some sequences of combat. It's hard to tell until you get to play it and get a feel for it to see where, say, the parry timing is, but that's the part that was throwing me off with the first one. Still, though, coming to PS5 and PC 2026. You're going to hear that a lot throughout this presentation, by the way. A lot of the stuff that we saw, I think, is, I mean, at worst, end of the year, probably not December. So I'm thinking everything we're seeing here is out in 8 months or less. All right, so let's keep going here. Ghost of Yote Legends multiplayer. We already knew this was coming, but they did make it official here with the announcement and some reveal. Online co-op up to 4 players. They had a demonic Yote 6 that you take down, 4 playable classes, and it's coming out March 10th, so next month. And of course, if you already have the game, it's just a free update that you'll be able to install and start playing that day. We move into Death Stranding 2 on PC. It has unlocked frame rates, ultra widescreen, DualSense controller support, upscaling, and frame generation are all available. That's coming out March 19th, and look, that's a game that's going to look incredible on a nice PC. I mean, with the ultra wide screen and then the vistas and scenery that they have there, especially in quiet scenes, I'll say, when you're walking along and the camera can zoom and pan out, like, there's some really, really cool stuff here, and I think it would look awesome, again, on a PC with everything cranked to max. 4 Loop was next. I'm still not sure about this. I mean, it's a 4-player combat sandbox. Right now, we keep talking about the live service multiplayer sector it's a struggle to break in. This does look like they are at least trying some stuff that's just different, and that could maybe help them out. It can also backfire, as we've seen with things like High Guard, but you do vote to choose missions to take on with your team. There's weird alien enemies that you fight off, the weapons and loot, of course, you collect, and if you get back, at least one of you do, the rest of you will be reprinted when you die, and they showed all kinds of weird stuff happening in this game where enemies will even react with each other, and there's upcoming playtests, so that's really where we're going to find out what exactly we have with this game when people actually get a chance to play it. We then had spots for Pragmata, which the one thing I will say about this, they showed off a different area that wasn't just in corridors like how we had with the demo. We had a whole city environment here, so that is nice to see, because I was a little concerned the game was going to look very samey all the way through. Of course, April 24th, there is a demo out. If you haven't played it yet, I think it's worth checking out. Resident Evil Requiem makes another appearance, February 27th. We're so close. I'm ready for this game to come out. And they showed the old police station with Leon opening the doors, and okay, there could be some fun callbacks here for him and his history with all of that. We then move into Legacy of Kain Defiance Remastered. That's coming out March 3rd, HD graphics, third-person camera, and there's all kinds of bonuses, skins, lost levels. I mean, there's a lot here for Legacy of Kain fans, so that was a fun little surprise. And then, another surprise, Brigandine Abyss. I have not heard Brigandine in forever. That's like a PS1 game that I remember we had at the store, and I'd occasionally look at it and be like, that's okay, that looks interesting. I never really got into the series at all. That would never cross my mind for a prediction in the State of Play, but it's a strategy RPG. It originated back on the PS1, and this is coming out in 2026. Dead or Alive 6 Last Round. So this is, to my understand, Dead or Alive 6 for the PlayStation 5. So they've done some upgrades for the current gen, and they've added in a bunch of characters that were originally released as DLC. More characters will be coming in future updates, and there's also a free-to-play version available at launch. That's June 25th, and they're working on a new entry in the Dead or Alive series. I think some were thinking it was more dead than alive, but nope, seems like it will be trudging along, and well, based on the reception for 6, I feel like it can't get much worse. Control Resonant was shown with full gameplay, and they did show off this ability called Shift. It changes gravity for the character, and the perception of the world will flip as soon as you change that gravity. Kind of reminiscent of like something maybe like a Gravity Rush sort of, but I mean, that's the idea. You take different things that have been used before in other games and then merge it into yours, and this looks like an interesting thing for just the Control universe. Much different than what we have with just Control. All right, much more action, third-person, melee combat focus. That's out 2026. Then we saw Crimson Moon. That's out in 2026. Beast of Reincarnation was shown again August 4th. Rayman 30th Anniversary Edition. 5 playable versions of the game. And it is out today, February 13th. A physical, though, isn't coming until June 26th. I think I'm holding off for the physical copy. Really, really cool stuff here for Rayman fans, and it seems like there will be more to look forward to later on at some point when they show off the new Rayman game that's currently in development. Mina the Hollower had an appearance here, spring 2026. A PS5 demo is out starting today that you can try it out and see what you think. We then have Neva, that's a prologue, set years before the original game, that's February 29th. We had Yako Shinobi Ops. When they first had this pop up, I was pretty interested. They showed it some, and I'm not really sure what to think. I mean, it's a stealth game, right? And it kind of reminds me a bit of like Tenchu, sort of. Not necessarily the perspective, because it was more zoomed out, sort of, almost top down. And it shows line of sight with light, like these light cones. QB vision from the old Madden games even. But it's not out 2027, so maybe this is an early build we saw, and we'll see a more polished looking one later on. Project Windless is making headlines because you play as a big chicken. Maybe a rooster. It looks like a chicken. So you play as a big chicken. There are these incredible, massive battles that are happening. You got dual katanas. You're just rolling through people as this chicken, fighting everyone. Third-person action adventure. Currently in development. That's all we really have. So hey, why not? You got to look unique. You got to stand out in the industry. Certainly one way to do it. Star Wars Galactic Racer, and I think this looks great. It looks like a new age pod racer from back in the N64 days here. Serious sense of speed as they're rounding corners. People are crashing, blowing up. Awesome. That's 2026. 007 First Light, another look, May 27th. And we go into Konami's own little showcase here. Metal Gear Solid Volume 2, that's Metal Gear Solid 4, Peace Walker, and Metal Gear Ghost Babel. That is the original first handheld game that released back on the Game Boy Color. Extremely rare, by the way. This is a cartridge that goes for like $140, $150 on eBay. So not a bad inclusion. August 27th, there's an update for Volume 1 that includes better visuals. That's out today. Great announcement, though. We've been waiting for this. It's not surprising, but it is nice to see. They've talked about Volume 2 before. Everyone's like, hey, you gotta get Metal Gear Solid 4 off of the PlayStation 3. And this is it. It also sounds like they will have improved resolution, improved frame rates, all the stuff across the board for Metal Gear Solid 4. Extremely exciting stuff there. And then they decided to go in Darwin's Paradox as a Metal Gear crossover demo and stuff. So something, I guess, interesting. And then we go into Castlevania Belmont's Curse. It's a 2D game from Evil Empire, a motion twin. Think Dead Cells there. Animations, art style look great. Combat looks awesome. Looks really, really tight in terms of the controls from what they were showing. Just the way everything moved. I'm excited for this. That's 2026. Silent Hill Townfall. First-person horror game here. And it gave me some shades of Condemned. That's out 2026. Konami. Rolling along. In fact, they were feeling so good, they decided to show up with a brand new title, Rev Noir. So this is a new JRPG title according to them, and I mean, it looked a little more action-focused than what I was thinking it was going to end up being, but hey, it's something new from Konami. They're expanding into gaming again, and I think that's great, just outright for the industry. So Konami almost firing on all cylinders. Still have some other cool stuff I'm sure they can do, though, because, well, they say that is the first in many releases, apparently, many different things for the Castlevania 40th anniversary. So we'll see what they have there for some other Castlevania announcements. John Wick was shown. This from Saber, and it looks like John Wick didn't overthink it as they shouldn't. And it's, it looks like a third-person action, crazy style game with, you can see there's melee, and then there's also him just shooting everybody. So yeah, looks about right. Marathon, that's coming up here pretty soon, of course, March 5th. There is a server slam that'll happen. That's February 26th to March 2nd, that weekend, where everyone can kind of just tune in and try the game out and try to break their servers. PlayStation Plus includes Spider-Man 2 on February 17th. That's a good entry if you haven't played it. May as well give it a download if you have the service. And then Tekken Dark Resurrection on the PSP. That's coming in March. Time Crisis. Okay, that's going to use gyro on the DualSense. That's of course from the PS1. That's in May. And then Big Walk, that's from House, who made Untitled Goose Game. That's out 2026. All right, for the PlayStation Plus service. Then we go into Sorrows, that looks great. It's out April 30th. Remember, it got delayed a little bit there. But between runs, you go to the passage. Here, you're able to interact with survivors to unravel the story. There is a permanent progression system, as they mentioned, a full skill tree. You can adjust experience that you gain by making things harder or easier, and you can teleport directly to any biome. So to me, it looks like they just said, what is all the feedback we're getting for Returnal? Okay, let's take that, let's apply it to Sorrows, and so I think this is going to be a good one for him. Marvel Tokon also is here, of course. They showed off some new characters. Storm, Magic, Wolverine, Danger. This game is out August 6th, so we got the release date. And then we go into the big one. This ends the whole show with Sony Santa Monica and the original voice actor for Kratos telling us about God of War Trilogy Remake. It's in early stages. And that 2D God of War game, Sons of Sparta. It's the very beginning of Kratos when he was young. It's like his 2D pixel art look. It's out now. Doesn't appear to be on other platforms, though. So we'll see about that in the future. At least for now, though, it's out. It's $30. I picked it up before I started filming. Have not had a chance to play it. It was like 10 gigabytes. So I just, you know what, go ahead and download. I'll get to this when I'm able to. But I would like to check that out because that is definitely very different than what we'd expect coming out of not only Sony Santa Monica, and they did partner with a studio for it, but just God of War. So overall, very good state of play. I mean, borderline, if they called this a showcase, would people have been surprised or would they have been okay with it? I think so. So because of that mentality, this is a really good state of play. A lot of cool stuff coming out of it. Really excited for Metal Gear Solid 4. Konami just being in attendance and actually having good stuff to announce, and coming out the other side with a bunch of third-party support and God of War stuff to look forward to, including the trilogy getting remade. That's just good stuff. But let me know what you think about it down below in the comments. Of course, I put up a poll, so we'll go ahead and take a look at what everyone voted for in terms of a letter grade later on. Next up, let's talk about those game key cards and how the market continues to respond to these things. So we did have Dragon Quest VII Reimagined release last week, and on the Switch 2 is indeed a game key card. So I was going to be curious, how does it fare in Japan, where Dragon Quest is very, very popular? It's like Dragon Quest Day, basically. So let's see, we can take a look. These will be the Famitsu sales charts. It's over on Install Base Forum, who tracks a lot of this stuff very, very well. I have a link down below if you want to look through it further. Dragon Quest VII Reimagined, though, did top the charts all three platforms, starting with the Switch 1, 177,563. The game keycard Switch 2 version, though, 160,101. And then we have the PS5 version, 118,798. Neo 3 coming in the fourth slot, 40,570. Then Mario Kart World, Animal Crossing New Horizons on the Switch, Animal Crossing New Horizons Switch 2 Edition. Then we have Momotaro Densetsu on the Switch 2, Pokemon Legends ZA on the Switch 1, and then Kirby Air Riders on the Switch 2. So yeah, there's a few things here. One, Dragon Quest VII Reimagined, you add them all together. It's a little less than people were expecting. Again, Dragon Quest is massive in Japan. That is still a very, very big number, obviously, when you add them all together. But people were still thinking it might have been a little more than that. I still say, hey, we are more and more digital than ever before, so we're going to have to look towards Square if they want to talk about overall sales figures on their end as they track the digital side. These would just be physical. But two, look, the Switch 2 is already taking over Japan in terms of software sales, and the game keycards really aren't slowing things down. And that, I'm sure, for people who don't like game keycards at all, it's a problem, it's a hard sticking point. That's not great news. But I do think as we go along, there will be games that will test everyone, basically. It's like, okay, I don't want to get it digitally because I might want to trade it in, and I really want this game. And again, in Japan, Dragon Quest is massive, so you go, I guess I'll get that game key. Just the one, though. Just the one game key card. And then it's like another one. And maybe we do get to a point where the game key card is more accepted than not, just as a, how else are these games going to even exist? Even though Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is not a big game, and I'm sure they could have fit it on, if a smaller cartridge existed, they probably could have gotten on like a 16 gigabyte cartridge, on the Switch too. But that's the reality currently. 64 gigabyte cartridges, still pretty expensive. Hopefully Nintendo can work through this and have smaller cartridges, because Dragon Quest VII Reimagined, I think, would have been a perfect fit for that. Still though, the game keycard, not really slowing it down in Japan. And in our last bit of news, let's talk a bit more about PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium. Sony did have that one announcement for Spider-Man 2, of course that going live February 17th, along with a bunch of other games actually, and some pretty good ones too. So let's start here over on PlayStation Blog. And again, this would be the PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium tier. Spider-Man 2 will be in there February 17th. Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown, also same day there. Along with Neva, that's on PS5 and PS4. Season, A Letter to the Future, PS5 and PS4. Monster Hunter Stories 2, Wings of Ruin, that's PS4. And then Monster Hunter Stories 1 on the PS4. Those are two good pickups considering Monster Hunter Stories 3 is coming up soon. So I guess if you just want to jump in and you already have PlayStation Plus Extra Premium, you can do so and try those games out. Maybe you get hooked and you play all the way through them and you'll get set up well for Monster Hunter Stories 3. Then we have Vemba, that's on the PS5. Echoes of the End Enhanced Edition on the PS5. And Rugby 25, PS5 and PS4. Finally, we do have our PlayStation Plus Premium Classics game, and it's Disney Pixar WALL-E. All right, then. I mean, that's all. It was a game from the PS2. I remember when it came out, because it's really funny. I think it came out on a bunch of platforms. Of course, the movie is very popular and stuff, sure. I don't know what it played like. That is the one interesting thing about some of these games that go into the service. I would never think to fire up WALL-E in an emulator or something to try it out, when obviously I could because it's on the PS2. But here it is just going into the service, and I go, I wonder what that plays like. So either I would look at the screenshots, or I could look at video, or I could hit a few buttons, download what's maybe a gigabyte or two, and just see. Also, what trophy list? Can you be someone out there who goes, you know what? I got the platinum in WALL-E. Because to me, there's some dedication there. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. We're asked, give the Sony State of Play a grade. Look at that, B was leading the way at 48%, then A at 28%. Wow, okay, so that 76% voted either a B or higher for this State of Play. That's really good. Okay, so then C was 16% and D at 8%. I'm really not sure what, I really don't know what someone who voted D was looking for at this point, because it's felt like there was a little bit of something for everyone at this show. So I don't know. I am right there, man. So here's what would have maybe pushed me over to an A. I'm like ready to B+. If they did, so they went Sony Santa Monica, God of War Remake Trilogy, awesome. And then they do the God of War 2D, and then the one last thing was Cory the Barlog's game. I'm like, wow, okay, that was a lot. There was a lot of PlayStation Studio stuff here, third-party stuff, shadow drops, demos, like they had it all. At that point, yeah, I probably would go A. They were just missing, I think, that one last big announcement to really push them over the edge. Something like big from one of their studios that'd be a bit more unique and out there and brand new, just to have that one last big reveal. So that could have been Cory Barlog, but maybe they're saving that for later, and it seems like we've been hearing about that forever. At this time, I'm just curious to see what it is, because it's supposed to be in a universe that already exists, but it would feel like a new IP anyway, so I don't know what to make of that, unless it really is Connecticut with Sony Santa Monica. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from LMK, who says, give me Fire Red and Leaf Green as a HD 2D remake and I'll be happy. You know, that HD 2D remake, you look at it, it does kind of scream old school Pokemon, so I get that. But at this point, for me, I've seen HD 2D so many times now, it would almost blend in. Like I'm to a position where I kind of would want them to come up with their own nostalgia-driven art style. And it is unfortunate, because if we didn't have any of these HD 2D games and Game Freak and the Pokemon Company came up with that would have hit hard. If like, hey, here's this whole new thing, we'd have no idea what we're looking at. We're like, this is incredible. But now it'll be like, there's that HD 2D style again. So it's gonna look very much like Project Triangle Strategy Octopath Pokemon. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to hear more about this Sony State of Play, where Ryan and I did a whole deep dive over everything that was announced. We talked about that in Click R3 last night, and I'll leave that right below. Thanks, guys, for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time for Newswave.